Zuri didn't wake because she wanted to. She woke because something in the room was already awake, watching her. And she knew, with the kind of certainty that lives in the body before the mind, that leaving would no longer be simple.
The bed was too large, too soft, too expensive. Everything smelled like cedar and something sharper, cologne, maybe, or just the scent of money. The man beside her was already awake, watching her. Not with desire, not with affection. With the kind of focus people, reserved for things they intended to keep. "You're awake," he said quietly, his voice smooth and unremarkable in a way that made it more unsettling. He didn't move his hand. Zuri's throat tightened. She remembered the bar, the conversation that had felt easy, dangerously easy. The way he'd listened when she mentioned her visa stress, her exhaustion, the weight of being alone in a country that would never fully accept her. She remembered saying yes when he offered to walk her home. She didn't remember inviting him inside. "I should go," she said, sitting up carefully. The sheet slipped. She grabbed it instinctively. "You should rest," he corrected, still watching. "It's 3 a.m. "I have work." "Not until noon." Her stomach dropped. "How do you?" "You told me." His expression didn't change. "The cafe on Itaewon Row, you work the lunch shift." She had told him that, hadn't she? "I need to go," she said again, more firmly this time. He sat up slowly, the sheet pooling at his waist. His chest was lean, marked with a scar that curved along his ribs like something had tried to open him once and failed. "Then go." But he didn't move his hand. Zuri looked down at where his fingers rested against her thigh, not gripping, not restraining, just there. A reminder. "What's your name?" she asked. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Seo Kang-Ryeon." "That's not what you told me last night." "Last night, I told you what you needed to hear." She should have been angry, should have pushed him away, demanded answers, left immediately. But something in his voice, calm, factual, inevitable, made resistance feel pointless. "Why?" she asked instead. "Because you were alone," he said simply, "and lonely people make poor decisions. Like going home with strangers. Like trusting that the world is safer than it is." He finally moved his hand, reaching past her to the nightstand. He picked up her phone, when had he taken it, and handed it to her. "Your alarm is set for 10. You have 3 missed calls from your mother, 1 from your landlord." Zuri snatched the phone, her pulse hammering. She checked the screen. He was right. "How did you?" "You didn't lock it." He stood, pulling on a shirt that had been draped over a chair. "I'll have a car take you home." "I can take the subway." "You could," he agreed, "but you won't. You don't know me." Kang-Ryeon turned to face her fully, and for the first time she saw something flicker in his expression. Not warmth, recognition. "I know you work 60 hours a week and send half your paycheck to Lagos. I know your visa expires in 4 months and your employer won't sponsor renewal. I know you haven't been home in 3 years and you're tired of pretending you're not terrified." Zuri's breath caught. "I know," he continued, stepping closer, "that you went home with me because for one night you wanted someone else to make the decisions." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't know anything about her. But she couldn't, because he was right. "Get dressed," he said softly. "The car is waiting." 3 weeks later, the nausea started. At first, Zuri told herself it was stress. The cafe had been unusually busy, her landlord was threatening to raise rent again, and her visa appointment had been mysteriously rescheduled twice without explanation. But when she vomited for the 3rd morning in a row, she knew. The clinic was small, tucked between a convenience store and a phone repair shop in Itaewon. The doctor was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and no judgment in her voice when she said, "6 weeks. Do you have support?" Zuri nodded automatically, even though the answer was no. She walked home in a daze, her phone heavy in her pocket. She should call her mother, should call someone, but what would she say? "I'm pregnant by a man whose real name I didn't know until after I slept with him." A man I haven't seen or heard from since. She climbed the stairs to her apartment. The elevator had been broken for months and stopped at the door. It was open. Not broken, not forced. Just unlocked. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She pushed the door open slowly, every muscle tense to run. Kang-Ryeon sat at her kitchen table, a folder open in front of him. "You should lock your door," he said without looking up. Zuri's hands shook. "How did you get in here?" "Your landlord gave me a key." "He wouldn't." "He would, he did." Kang-Ryeon closed the folder and finally met her eyes. "Sit down, Zuri." "Get out." "Sit down." There was no anger in his voice, no threat, just the same calm inevitability that had unsettled her 3 weeks ago. She didn't sit. "You went to a clinic this morning," he said. "Dr. Han's office. You were there for 40 minutes. Zuri's vision blurred. "You're following me." "I'm protecting you." "I didn't ask for." "You're pregnant." He said it like a fact, not a question. 6 weeks. Her knees gave out. She caught herself on the doorframe, her breathing ragged. Kang-Ryeon stood, crossing the small space between them in 2 strides. He caught her arm gently, but with the certainty of someone who expected to be obeyed. "Sit." This time she did. He poured her a glass of water from her own tap, set it in front of her, and returned to his seat. "You have options," he said. "I'm here to discuss them." "This isn't a business meeting." "Everything is a business meeting." He opened the folder again, turning it so she could see. Immigration documents, bank statements, employment records. Her employment records. "Your visa renewal was denied," he said, 2 days ago. "That's impossible. I haven't even." "It was flagged for review due to inconsistencies in your employer's tax filings. The cafe has been operating partially off the books for 18 months. Immigration is investigating." Zuri's stomach lurched. "I didn't know." "I know you didn't." He tapped the document. "But ignorance won't protect you. You have 2 weeks before they begin deportation proceedings." "No," the word came out strangled. "No, I'll find another sponsor, You won't." His voice was flat, final. "No one will sponsor you now. You're flagged in the system." She wanted to scream, wanted to throw the glass at him, demand to know why he was doing this, why he was here, why he seemed to know everything before she did. Instead, she whispered, "What do you want?" Kang-Ryeon leaned back in his chair, studying her with that same unreadable expression. "I want you safe." "Why?" "Because you're carrying my child." The words hung in the air like a verdict. "That's not," Zuri stopped. "That's not a reason. You don't even know me." "I know enough." "You know nothing." "I know," he said quietly, "that if you're deported, you'll lose everything. Your savings, your job, your chance at the life you came here to build. I know that raising a child alone in Lagos without family support will break you. I know that you're too proud to ask for help and too stubborn to accept it even if it's offered." "You don't know that." "Don't I?" He closed the folder. "I'm offering you a way out." "I don't need." "You do." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "I've arranged temporary housing. Secure, private, fully furnished. You'll move in tomorrow." "I'm not moving anywhere." "Your lease was terminated this morning. Your landlord accepted a buyout." Zuri shot to her feet, the chair scraping violently against the floor. "You can't do this." "I already have." "This is insane. This is." She struggled for words, for air, for any sense of control. "I'll call the police." "And tell them what?" His voice was still calm, still maddeningly reasonable. "That a man is offering you housing and protection, that he's preventing your deportation. They won't help you, Zuri. They'll congratulate you." "I'll tell them you're threatening me." "I'm not threatening you." He picked up the folder, tucking it under his arm. "I'm removing obstacles. There's a difference." "I don't want your help." "You need it." He walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the frame. "The car will be here at 9 tomorrow morning. Pack what matters. Everything else will be provided." "And if I refuse?" He turned back, and for the first time she saw something other than calm in his eyes, something darker. You won't. The apartment, no. The penthouse was everything Zuri had never allowed herself to want. 3 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River, a kitchen with appliances she didn't know how to use. The furniture was modern and expensive, the kind that appeared in magazines she couldn't afford to buy. There was a security guard at the entrance, cameras in every hallway, a fingerprint scanner on her door. Prison had never looked so beautiful. You'll be safe here, Kang-Ryeon said, setting her single suitcase in the master bedroom. No one enters without clearance. Except you. Except me. Zuri crossed her arms, refusing to look impressed. How long? As long as necessary. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. He moved through the space with the ease of someone who owned it, because he did, she realized. This wasn't a rental. This was his. I can't afford this, she said. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Kang-Ryeon stopped in the doorway to the kitchen, his back to her. I'm asking you to trust that I know what I'm doing. You're asking me to give up control of my entire life. No, he turned. I'm telling you that you never had it to begin with. The words hit like a slap. You think you were making choices, he continued, his voice soft but merciless. Your job, your apartment, your visa, you think those were decisions you controlled. They weren't. You were always one bad month, one bureaucratic error, one unlucky day away from losing everything. That's not. It is. He closed the distance between them, and she forced herself not to step back. You've been surviving, Zuri, not living. There's a difference. And you're offering me what? A gilded cage. I'm offering you stability. At what cost? His eyes held hers. We'll discuss terms when you're ready. I'm ready now. No, he said quietly. You're not. He left without another word, the door closing with a soft click that sounded like a lock sliding into place. Zuri didn't sleep that night. She wandered through the penthouse, cataloging every detail. The refrigerator was stocked with food, Nigerian food. Jollof rice, plantains, groundnut soup in containers labeled in Yoruba. Her favorite bread from the African market in Itiwan. How did he know? The bathroom had her preferred shampoo, her soap, her brand of toothpaste. The closet held clothes in her exact size, casual, comfortable, not the designer pieces she'd expected. He'd been watching her. For how long? Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The doctor will visit tomorrow at 10 a.m. She's been briefed on your situation. No need to travel. Zuri typed back, I didn't agree to this. The response was immediate. You will. She threw the phone across the room. It landed on the sofa, unbroken. Of course it was unbroken. Everything here was designed to withstand her. Dr. Yoon arrived at exactly 10, carrying a medical bag and a tablet. She was younger than Zuri expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I'm here to monitor your pregnancy, she said after brief introductions. COSSI has asked me to provide comprehensive care. COSSI didn't ask me. Dr. Yoon's expression didn't change. Nevertheless, you're 6 weeks along and prenatal care is essential. May I examine you? Zuri wanted to refuse, wanted to tell this woman to leave, to tell Kang-Ryeon that she didn't need or want his orchestrated care. But she was pregnant, and she was terrified. Fine, she said. The examination was thorough and professional. Dr. Yoon asked questions about her medical history, her family's health, her symptoms. She drew blood, checked her blood pressure, made notes on her tablet. Everything looks normal, she said finally. Your HCG levels are appropriate for 6 weeks. I'll schedule an ultrasound for next week. Here. Unless you'd prefer a hospital, but given your situation, privacy might be preferable. My situation, Zuri repeated flatly. Dr. Yoon packed her equipment with practiced efficiency. COSSI is a careful man. He doesn't make moves without reason. You know him. I work for him. Doing what? Keeping people alive. Dr. Yoon stood, slinging her bag over her shoulder. I'll be back next week. In the meantime, prenatal vitamins are in the kitchen. Take them with food. Call me if you have any concerns. She handed Zuri a card with her number. Does he pay you well? Zuri asked, not bothering to hide the bitterness in her voice. Dr. Yoon paused at the door. He pays me enough to ignore questions I shouldn't answer. But for what it's worth, you're not the first person he's protected. You're just the first one who seems angry about it. Kang-Ryeon didn't visit for 3 days. Zuri told herself she was relieved. Told herself the quiet was welcome, that she needed time to think, to plan, to figure out her next move. But the apartment was too quiet. Too empty. Too much like waiting. On the 4th day, she tried to leave. The elevator required a key card she didn't have. The stairwell doors were locked from the inside. The security guard at the entrance was polite but immovable. I'm sorry, miss. You'll need authorization to exit the building. Authorization from who? CUSSI. I'm not a prisoner. The guard's expression was sympathetic but firm. Of course not, miss. It's for your safety. Zuri returned to the penthouse, her hands shaking with rage. Her phone buzzed. You tried to leave. I want groceries, she typed back. I want fresh air. I want to feel like a human being. Make a list. I'll have everything delivered. That's not the same. It's safer. Safer for who? The response took longer this time, for both of us. She threw the phone again. This time it landed on the hardwood floor with a satisfying crack. Within an hour, a new phone arrived by courier. Kang-Ryeon appeared on the 5th night without warning. Zuri was in the kitchen, attempting to cook with ingredients she didn't choose, when she heard the door open. She didn't turn around. You can't keep me here forever, she said. I know. Then what's the plan? I stay locked up until I give birth, until the baby's grown, until I die. The plan, he said calmly, is to keep you alive long enough to have options. She spun around. I had options, you took them away. You had the illusion of options. He set a folder on the counter, a different folder thicker. You were never safe, Zuri. Not in that apartment, not at that job, not in this city. Because of you. Because of what you are to me. The words hung between them, heavy with implications she didn't want to examine. I'm nothing to you, she said. You're pregnant with my child. That makes you everything. I didn't ask to be. I know. He opened the folder and Zuri's stomach dropped. Photographs, surveillance photos of her. At the cafe, on the subway, walking home, alone in her apartment. What is this? Her voice was barely a whisper. Proof, Kang-Ryeon said quietly, that someone else was watching you before I was. The room tilted. Who? I don't know yet, but they've been following you for at least 2 months, since before we met. Zuri's hands gripped the counter. That's not possible. It's not only possible, it's why I approached you that night. He pointed to one of the photos, dated 3 months prior. You were already being watched. I needed to know why. This is insane. I'm no one, I'm just... You're connected to me now. That's all that matters. We spent one night together. And it was enough. She wanted to scream, wanted to demand answers, explanations, something that made sense. Who would care? Who would even know? People who make it their business to know. Kang-Ryeon closed the folder. People who look for weaknesses. I'm not your weakness. You are now. The certainty in his voice was worse than any threat. So what? Zuri's voice cracked. You lock me up, control my life, make all my decisions for me. That's your solution. It's temporary. Until what? Until I eliminate the threat. And if you can't... He met her eyes, and for the first time, she saw something almost human in them. Something that might have been fear, if he were capable of it. Then we discuss more permanent arrangements. The ultrasound was scheduled for Tuesday. Dr. Yoon arrived with a portable machine and a technician Zuri had never seen before. The technician was silent, efficient, his eyes never meeting hers as he set up the equipment in the master bedroom. "This is Yi," Dr. Yoon said. "He'll be performing the scan." "Does he work for COSSI too?" "Everyone works for someone." Dr. Yoon's tone was neutral. "Lie back, please." The gel was cold. The wand pressing against her abdomen was clinical, impersonal. Zuri stared at the ceiling, refusing to look at the screen. "There," Yi said quietly. "Strong heartbeat, measuring right on track for 8 weeks." 8 weeks. 2 months since that night. 2 months since her life stopped being her own. "Would you like to see?" Dr. Yoon asked. "No. It might help. Some women find it." I said no. Silence, then the sound of the machine being shut off, equipment being packed away. "You're healthy," Dr. Yoon said. "The baby's healthy, that's what matters." "Is it?" Zuri sat up, wiping the gel from her stomach with a towel that was too soft, too expensive. "Does health matter when you're a prisoner?" Dr. Yoon's expression flickered, something that might have been sympathy. "I don't know your situation entirely, and it's not my place to judge. But I know COSSI doesn't make careless decisions. If he's protecting you, there's a reason. A reason that justifies this." "That's not for me to say." She packed the last of her equipment. "I'll be back next week." After they left, Zuri sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her reflection in the darkened window. She looked the same. But nothing was the same. Kang-Ryeon came that night. She heard the door open, heard his footsteps in the hallway. He appeared in the bedroom doorway, still wearing a suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Dr. Yoon said everything went well. "Did she also tell you I refused to look at the screen?" "She did. And it's your choice." Zuri laughed bitterly. "My choice, that's rich." He stepped into the room, and she fought the urge to retreat. "You're angry. You're observant. You have a right to be angry." "Do I? Or is that another illusion you're letting me keep?" Kang-Ryeon was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Ask me." "Ask you what?" "Whatever you want to know. One honest answer." She stared at him, searching for the trap. "Why me?" "Because you were kind to someone who didn't deserve it." The answer caught her off guard. "What?" 6 months ago, a kid tried to rob you outside the subway. 15, maybe 16. High on something, desperate. You gave him your wallet." Zuri remembered. The boy had been shaking, his eyes wild. She'd been terrified, but something in his face had reminded her of her younger brother. "How do you know that?" "I know everything." He moved closer, and she let him. "The police arrested him 2 days later. He's in rehabilitation now, not prison, because you didn't press charges." "That doesn't explain why you." "That boy works for me, or his family does. They told me what you did." Kang-Ryeon's voice was soft, almost gentle. "In my world, kindness is rare, expensive, it makes you valuable." "So you what? Decided to own me?" "I decided to keep you alive." "Same thing." "Not to me." She wanted to hate him, wanted to find the rage that had sustained her through the last week, but all she felt was tired. "What happens next?" she asked. "We wait." "For what?" "For me to make you safe enough to have a choice." "And if I want to choose now?" "Then tell me what you want." The question was so simple, so direct, that it stole her breath. What did she want? To go home, to rewind time, to undo that night, that choice, that moment when she'd been too lonely and too tired to say no. But she couldn't say that, because it would mean erasing this, the pregnancy, the future, the terrifying possibility of something that might matter. "I want to leave this apartment," she said finally. "I want to walk outside. I want to feel the sun." Kang-Ryeon studied her face for a long moment. "Tomorrow, I'll take you myself." Just like that. Just like that. "Why?" "Because you asked." He turned to leave, then paused. "And because you deserve to know I'm not your enemy." "Then who are you?" He looked back, and something in his expression made her chest tighten. I'm the only thing standing between you and people who would hurt you to hurt me. The next morning, Kang-Ryeon arrived at 9. He was dressed differently, jeans, a black jacket, nothing that screamed wealth or power. But somehow he looked more dangerous like this, more real. Ready? He asked. Zuri grabbed her coat. Where are we going? Where do you want to go? The question felt like a test. The Han River, I used to walk there. Then that's where we'll go. They took the elevator down in silence. The security guard nodded at Kang-Ryeon, his expression unreadable. A car was waiting, black, expensive, with tinted windows that made it impossible to see inside. Do you always travel like this? Zuri asked as they pulled into traffic. When I'm protecting something valuable. I'm not a thing. I know, but they don't. They. He didn't answer. The river was crowded with morning joggers and couples walking hand in hand. Zuri breathed in the cold air, feeling something in her chest loosen. She'd missed this. The noise, the movement, the proof that the world still existed outside glass walls. They walked in silence for a while, 2 guards trailing at a discreet distance. You could run, Kang-Ryeon said suddenly. Zuri glanced at him. What? Right now, you could run, lose yourself in the crowd, find a police station, tell them whatever story you want. He kept his eyes forward. I wouldn't stop you. Yes, you would. No, he finally looked at her. I'd let you go, and then I'd spend the rest of my life making sure you stayed safe from a distance. I don't believe you. I know, but it's true. They stopped at a bench overlooking the water. Zuri sat, and after a moment he joined her. Why are you doing this? She asked. Really, not the story about the boy or kindness being rare, the real reason. Kang-Ryeon was quiet for so long, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because I've spent my entire life making choices that hurt people. Sometimes people who deserved it, sometimes people who didn't. He turned to look at her. You didn't deserve any of this, but you got it anyway. And I can either let that destroy you, or I can make sure you survive it strong enough to hate me from a position of safety. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Zuri studied his profile, the sharp lines of his face, the scar she'd noticed that first night. The way he held himself like violence was always one wrong word away. What if I don't want to survive? She asked quietly. What if I want my life back? Your life back, he repeated. The one where you work yourself to exhaustion, send all your money home, and lie awake wondering if you'll be deported before you can build something worth staying for. It was mine. It was borrowed time. He stood, offering his hand. Come on, there's something I want to show you. She hesitated, then took it. They walked further along the river, the guards maintaining their distance. Eventually, they reached a construction site, high fences, heavy machinery, scaffolding reaching toward the sky. What is this? Zuri asked. A hotel, should be finished in 8 months. He gestured to the blueprint posted near the entrance. 500 rooms, conference facilities, rooftop restaurant. Why are you showing me this? Because you're going to manage the restaurant. Zuri stared at him. What? You studied hospitality management in Lagos before you came here. You wanted to run your own place someday. He looked at her. This is your place, if you want it. I can't just. You can. The business will be registered in your name. Full ownership, full control. I'll provide the capital, but the decisions are yours. Why would you do that? Because you need something that's yours. Something I can't touch, can't control, can't take away. His voice was calm, factual. And because our child deserves a mother who has her own power. Zuri's throat tightened. This is a choice, he finished. Maybe the first real one you've had in a long time. She looked at the construction site, at the steel and concrete that would become walls, floors, a future. What if I fail? Then you fail, and you try again. What if I don't want it? Then we find something else. What if I want nothing to do with you? Kang-Ryeon's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then I make sure you and the baby are provided for, and I disappear from your life except for monthly financial transfers and security I'll maintain without your knowledge. You do that, if that's what you need me to do. She wanted to call him a liar, wanted to demand proof, contracts, something binding. But the way he said it, quiet, resigned, like he'd already accepted that outcome, made her believe him. I don't know what I want, she admitted. Then we wait until you do. The bombing happened on a Thursday. Zuri was in the kitchen making breakfast when the penthouse shook. The windows rattled. Somewhere in the distance, an alarm shrieked. Her phone rang immediately. Kang-Ryeon's voice was clipped, urgent. Stay inside. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. What's happening? Just do as I say. The line went dead. Zuri rushed to the window. 6 blocks away, smoke rose from what looked like an office building. Emergency vehicles converged on the scene, their sirens wailing. Her hands shook as she locked the door, checked the windows, pulled the curtains. Kang-Ryeon arrived 30 minutes later with 2 armed guards. He looked wrong. His shirt was torn, his knuckles bloodied. There was a cut above his eyebrows still bleeding. Oh my God, Zuri breathed. I'm fine. He dismissed the guards with a gesture, then turned to her. Are you hurt? No, what happened? A message. He moved to the kitchen, washing his hands in the sink. Blood swirled down the drain. Directed at me. A bomb is a message. A bomb is a conversation opener. He dried his hands on a towel that immediately stained red. They want me to know they're willing to escalate. Who? Hanso, or more accurately, the people she represents. Zuri remembered the name from the documents she'd glimpsed. The political heiress. Among other things, Kang-Ryeon finally looked at her, and something in his eyes made her stomach drop. She's going to come after you. Why? Because you matter to me. Because you're carrying my child. Because in her world, that makes you a weapon she can use. The words settled over her like ice water. So what do? We make you untouchable. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through something. There's a way to protect you legally, completely, but you won't like it. What is it? Marriage. The word hit like a physical blow. No, Zuri said immediately. Zuri. No, absolutely not. Listen to me. I won't marry you because someone bombed a building. Her voice rose. I won't tie myself to you legally just because you've decided that's the solution. It's not about tying you to me. Kang-Ryeon's voice was still calm, maddeningly calm. It's about legal immunity, political protection. If you're my wife, Seo can't touch you without declaring war on me directly. Find another way. There is no other way. Then I'll leave. I'll go back to Nigeria. They'll follow you. He stepped closer. They'll wait until you're alone, vulnerable, and they'll use you to destroy me. Or worse, they'll hurt the baby to hurt me. You don't know that. I do. His voice finally cracked. I've seen what these people do, Zuri. I've cleaned up the aftermath. I will not let that happen to you. She backed away until she hit the counter. This is insane. This entire situation is insane. I know. I don't love you. I know. I don't even like you most of the time. I know that too. Then why are you doing this? Kang-Ryeon closed the distance between them in 2 strides, his hands framing her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything he was. Because losing you would destroy me, he said quietly, and I'm selfish enough to prevent that at any cost. The marriage proposal sat on the kitchen table for 3 days. Zuri circled it like a trapped animal, reading the contract over and over, looking for loopholes, escape clauses, anything that would make this feel less like surrender. The terms were surprisingly fair. Separate finances, no obligation of cohabitation after the first year, full custody rights negotiable post-birth, divorce available after 5 years with no penalties. It read less like a marriage contract and more like a business merger. Which, she supposed, was exactly what it was. Kang-Ryeon didn't push. He visited once a day, always with guards, always with updates on security measures and threat assessments. He treated her with careful courtesy, like she was something fragile that might shatter if handled roughly. It made her want to scream at him, made her want to provoke some reaction, some crack in that infuriating composure. On the third night, she signed. Not because she wanted to, because the alternative was worse. Kang-Ryeon arrived within an hour of her text, as if he'd been waiting nearby. He reviewed the signature, nodded once, and made a phone call in Korean too rapid for her to follow. "It's done," he said, pocketing his phone. "We'll register it tomorrow. The ceremony can wait until after." "There won't be a ceremony." "Zuri, this is a contract, nothing more." She met his eyes. "Don't pretend it's anything else." Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. But it was gone before she could name it. "As you wish," he said quietly. After he left, Zuri sat in the dark penthouse, her hand resting on her still flat stomach, and wondered what she'd just done. The registered marriage made her legally untouchable. It also made her visible. Within a week, her face appeared in society pages she'd never heard of. Seo Kang-Ryeon's mysterious bride. Nigerian beauty captures Seoul's most eligible bachelor. The photos were always taken from a distance, leaving restaurants, entering cars, walking through the penthouse lobby. She hated every single one. "They'll lose interest," Kang-Ryeon said when she showed him the articles. "Give it time. And if they don't, then they'll learn to be more careful with their cameras." The threat in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made her feel something worse. Protected. That was the danger, she realized. Not the cage itself, but how easy it was becoming to accept it. Hanso made her move on a Tuesday. Zuri was meeting with an architect about the restaurant. Her restaurant, though the reality of it still felt surreal, when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Mrs. Seo," a woman's voice said. Cool, cultured, speaking English with a British accent. "We haven't been properly introduced. I'm Hanso." Zuri's blood went cold. "How did you get this number?" "Please, I have access to much more than phone numbers." A pause. "I'd like to meet just the two of us, woman to woman." "I don't think. Your husband has something that belongs to me. I'm willing to negotiate its return, but I need to speak with you first." "Anything you need to say, you can say to him directly." "Can I?" Seoyeon's laugh was soft, dangerous. "Men like Seo Kang-Ryeon don't negotiate, they dictate. But women, we understand the value of compromise." "I'm not interested in whatever you're." "The restaurant is lovely, by the way. Such potential. It would be a shame if something happened to delay construction. Permits can be so complicated in Seoul, especially for foreign nationals." The threat was barely veiled. "What do you want?" Zuri asked. "Coffee tomorrow, 2:00. I'll send you the address." Seoyeon's voice softened. "Come alone, Mrs. Seo. If you bring security, I'll know, and this conversation will become much more official." The line went dead. Zuri stared at her phone, her heart hammering. She should tell Kang-Ryeon, should show him the call log, let him handle it. But Seoyeon's words echoed. Men like Seo Kang-Ryeon don't negotiate. They dictate. What if she could end this without more violence, without more blood on marble floors? That night, she didn't mention the call. The cafe was in Gangnam, expensive and discreet. Seoyeon sat in a corner booth, perfectly composed in a cream suit that probably cost more than Zuri's entire wardrobe. "Mrs. Seo," she gestured to the seat across from her, "thank you for coming." Zuri sat, hyper-aware of the lack of guards, the exposure. "You have 5 minutes." "Direct, I appreciate that." Seoyeon poured tea from a delicate pot. "Let me be equally direct. You're pregnant with Kang-Ryeon's child. That makes you leverage I can't ignore." "I'm not leverage, I'm a person. In our world, those things aren't mutually exclusive." Seoyeon sipped her tea. "Here's what I'm offering. Leave. Quietly. Return to Nigeria. I'll ensure your visa issues disappear, provide substantial financial support, arrange private medical care. You can raise the child in peace away from all of this. And if I refuse, then I'll be forced to take more aggressive measures. Seo set down her cup. Legal measures, initially. Your marriage was registered but not properly vetted. I have friends in immigration who can flag irregularities. Fraud investigations are tedious, don't you think? Zuri's hands clenched under the table. You're threatening to have me deported. I'm offering you an exit. Seo leaned forward. Do you really want to raise a child in Kang-Ryeon's world? A world where bombs are conversation openers, where people are leverage and nothing is ever safe. That's not your decision to make. No, but it is yours. Seo pulled out a folder. Of course there was a folder. These are the arrangements, everything you'd need. Freedom, Mrs. Seo, real freedom. Not the gilded cage he's trapped you in. Zuri stared at the folder, her mind racing. Why? She asked finally. Why do you care what happens to me? I don't. Seoyeon's honesty was almost refreshing. But I care about what you represent. Kang-Ryeon has always been careful, controlled. You make him reckless, and reckless men make mistakes. You want him vulnerable. I want him gone. Seoyeon's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and hungry beneath. He's holding territory that belongs to my family, resources, connections. His protection of you gives me an opening. Either you leave and he's distracted, or you stay and become a target. Either way, I win. Zuri stood, her chair scraping against polished floor. You're not offering me freedom. You're offering me a different cage. Perhaps, Seoyeon didn't stand. But at least you'd be alive to see your child grow up. Stay, and I can't promise that. Is that a threat? It's a reality. Seoyeon's voice was almost gentle. I like you, Mrs. Seo. You don't belong in this world. Let me help you escape it. Zuri picked up the folder, and for a moment, Seoyeon's eyes gleamed with victory. Then Zuri ripped it in half. Tell Kang-Ryeon I said hello, she said, dropping the pieces on the table. She walked out, her hands shaking, her heart pounding, knowing she'd just made an enemy of someone who destroyed people with paperwork and patience. But she'd also made a choice. Kang-Ryeon was in the penthouse when she returned, standing at the window like he'd been waiting. You met with her, he said without turning around. Zuri's stomach dropped. How? I have people everywhere, Zuri. Did you think I wouldn't know? Then why didn't you stop me? Because you needed to see for yourself. He finally turned, and his expression was unreadable. What did she offer you? Freedom, money, safety. Zuri crossed her arms. Everything you can't give me. And yet you're here. And yet I'm here. Silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. She threatened the restaurant, Zuri said finally. The permits, the construction, she said she could make problems. She can. Then fix it. Kang-Ryeon studied her face. How? Zuri took a breath. This was it, the line she was about to cross. However you need to, just make sure she can't touch what's mine. Zuri. Don't, she held up a hand. Don't make me say it explicitly, just do what you do. Understanding dawned in his eyes, not surprise, almost relief. You're asking me to handle her. I'm asking you to protect what matters to me. Isn't that what you've been doing all along? This is different. Is it? She stepped closer. You've been making decisions for me since the night we met. At least this time I'm asking. Kang-Ryeon's jaw tightened. You understand what you're asking. I understand that she threatened my child, my future. Zuri's voice didn't waver. I understand that in your world, some problems don't get solved with lawyers and paperwork. And you can live with that. Can you? He reached out, his hand hovering near her face before finally making contact. His thumb brushed her cheek, and for the first time the gesture felt mutual. Not him claiming her, them choosing this. Yes, he said quietly, I can. 3 weeks later, Han Seoyeon's empire began to crumble. It started with leaked documents, evidence of corruption, bribery, connections to organized crime that her political family had spent decades hiding. The news cycle devoured the scandal. Investigations were launched. Allies disappeared overnight. Seo herself vanished from public view. The permits for Zuri's restaurant were approved within 48 hours. Zuri didn't ask how Kang-Ryeon had done it, didn't want to know the details. She'd asked him to protect her, and he had. The cost was her innocence, whatever remained of it. She was complicit now. And the terrifying part was how little guilt she felt. The contractions started at 36 weeks. Zuri was reviewing menu proposals when the pain hit, sharp, immediate, wrong. Her water broke on the expensive hardwood floor, and for the first time since meeting Kang-Ryeon, she felt real fear. Not for herself. For the baby. Kang-Ryeon arrived before the ambulance. How, she didn't know and didn't care. He carried her to the car himself, his composure finally cracking. "You're going to be fine," he said, but his voice shook. "Both of you, you're going to be fine." "You don't know that." "I know." His hands were gentle on her face, trembling slightly. "I know because I won't allow anything else." Even now, even terrified, he spoke like he could dictate reality. The hospital was private, exclusive, already alerted. Dr. Yoon met them at the entrance, her expression calm but her movements urgent. "Premature but not dangerous," she said after a quick examination. "The baby's ready, we just need to be careful." Labor was pain and fear, and Kang-Ryeon's hand in hers, his presence the only constant as everything else blurred. At some point she screamed at him, told him this was his fault, that she hated him, that she never should have. "I know," he said quietly, his thumb brushing her knuckles. "I know, but you're here, you're alive, and that's all that matters." 14 hours later, a baby's cry filled the room. "A girl," Dr. Yoon said, placing the tiny, perfect creature on Zuri's chest. Zuri looked down at her daughter, their daughter, and felt something shift inside her chest. Not love at first sight, maybe, but recognition. This was why she'd stayed, why she'd signed the contract, why she'd asked Kang-Ryeon to eliminate a threat she could have walked away from. Not for him. For this. When she looked up, Kang-Ryeon was staring at them both with an expression she'd never seen before. Vulnerable, odd, terrified. "Can I?" He stopped, swallowed. "May I hold her?" Zuri nodded, too exhausted to speak. He took the baby with surprising gentleness, his large hands cradling her tiny body like she was made of glass. Something in his face cracked open, just for a moment, revealing the man underneath the control. "Hello," he whispered. "I'm your father, and I promise I will keep you safe from everything, even from me if necessary." Zuri closed her eyes, tears sliding down her temples. She'd made her choice. The marriage contract came out again 3 months later. They were in the penthouse, Zuri rocking the baby, Kang-Ryeon reviewing documents at the dining table. Domestic, almost normal. Except nothing about them was normal. "I want to renegotiate," Zuri said suddenly. Kang-Ryeon looked up. "The contract." "All of it." She stood, the baby sleeping against her shoulder. "New terms, real terms." "What do you want?" "Full financial autonomy, my name on everything, the restaurant, investments, property, legal custody agreement in writing. And," she took a breath, "and I want you to promise that if I ever want to leave, you'll let me go." "Zuri." "No," she cut him off. "This only works if I know I can leave, that I'm choosing to stay, every day, that it's not just because you've made leaving impossible." Kang-Ryeon set down his pen slowly. "You're asking me to give up control." "I'm asking you to share it." He stood, crossing to where she stood. The baby stirred but didn't wake. "If I agree," he said quietly, "and you choose to leave anyway, then you let me go, and we figure out co-parenting like adults. And if I can't, then this was never about protection, it was about possession." She met his eyes. "Which is it, Kang-Ryeon?" He was silent for a long time, his jaw working. "Then, I'll have the documents drawn up by tomorrow." Zuri released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "Why? You could keep things as they are." "Because losing you would destroy me," he said, echoing his words from months ago. But destroying you to keep you would be worse. That's not an answer. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. It's the only one I have. 6 months later, Zuri stood at the penthouse window, her daughter in her arms, watching Seoul light up against the night sky. The restaurant had opened last month to critical acclaim. Her name was on the deed. Her bank account was her own. The custody agreement sat in a safe deposit box she controlled. She could leave. Any day, any time. The documents Kang-Ryeon had signed made it legally simple. But she didn't. Not because she couldn't, because she chose not to. Behind her, she heard Kang-Ryeon enter the apartment. Their apartment now, by choice rather than necessity. His footsteps were quiet, but she knew them. How was the meeting? She asked without turning. Productive. He moved to stand beside her, his reflection joining hers in the glass. The expansion is approved. Good. They stood in silence, watching the city. The baby made a small sound, and Kang-Ryeon reached out, his finger brushing her tiny hand. She gripped it instinctively. And something softened in his expression. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. Any of it? Zuri considered the question. The truth was complicated. She regretted the fear, the loss of autonomy, the months of feeling trapped. But standing here, her daughter in her arms, her restaurant thriving, her future secured by contracts she'd negotiated herself. No, she said finally, I don't regret it. But you don't love me. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. I don't know what I feel. It's not love, not hatred, something more complicated. And that's enough. For now, she finally turned to look at him. Is it enough for you? Kang-Ryeon's hand moved to her face, the gesture familiar now. Not possession, something closer to partnership. For now, he echoed. The baby yawned, and Zuri smiled despite herself. She needs to sleep. Then let's put her down. They moved together through the penthouse, the beautiful cage that had become something else. Not freedom, not imprisonment. Survival with terms. Power with compromise. Protection that came at a cost Zuri had chosen to pay. As she laid her daughter in the crib, she caught her reflection in the nursery window. She looked different, older, harder, stronger. She was protected. She was powerful. She was not free. And she knew, with absolute certainty, that this was exactly what she'd chosen. Outside, Seoul glittered and gleamed, beautiful and cold and dangerous. Inside, Kang-Ryeon's hand found her shoulder, a question in the touch. Zuri leaned back into it. Not surrender. Acceptance. The end. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below telling me what you thought. Should Zuri have left when she had the chance? Or did she make the right call? Let me know. I read every comment. New stories drop every week, so hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then, stay safe out there. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous cages are the ones we choose ourselves.